Hello, my name is Aaron and welcome to another video. Today we're talking about the best video settings for YouTube for Sony mirrorless cameras. So, in this video we're going to be looking at a couple of things. The best settings for your camera and also setup tips for the room and environment where you are filming. Using all these tips and tricks together should vastly improve the quality of your YouTube videos. But before we get started, please consider subscribing to the channel and dropping a like on the video. So I'm recording this video on the Sony a5100 with the 16 to 50mm kit lens, but these tips and tricks will work across the whole Sony Alpha range. So my first tip isn't a setting, but it's just a general tip, and that is, if you can, mount your camera on a tripod. I'm using a really cheap Amazon Basics 60-inch tripod. This costs about £20, $30, something around that, and it just keeps your camera really sturdy indoors, and you can use it outdoors as well. Of course, there are smaller tripod options, but if you're on a really low budget and can't use a tripod, just make sure your camera is positioned somewhere really steady and somewhere where you can keep yourself framed really well. So the first camera setting I would say is make sure you're always using movie mode. Now you can record in other modes on the Sony Alpha cameras, but in movie mode just means that the settings should be generally set up well for recording movies. Now for the different options that you get within movie mode, I would use Program Auto. This means that most of the settings are going to be automatically adjusted for the room and the light that you've got available to you. But it does mean you have a couple of settings that you can adjust yourself if required. Or if you want those blurry backgrounds, you can use aperture priority mode. However, you do need to be aware if you're using a higher aperture, there will be less light available in the shot, so you do need to make sure that you are in a well-lit room if you're using higher aperture. So other video settings, for the highest quality file format, make sure you select either XAVC-S or AVC HD. And you can find this setting under Camera Settings, File Format, and here you can see XAVC-S or AVC HD. Both of these settings are great for 1080p video, or if you're using a camera that supports 4K, make sure you use XAVC-S for the highest quality video. For a full rundown on the differences between these two file formats, check out this video here where I go into this in more depth. So the next setting to check is the record settings. The highest possible quality on the A5100 is 60p 50m, which is 60 frames per second at 50 megabits per second transfer speed. So this will be the highest quality at the highest frame rate. Some of the newer cameras do go up to 120 frames per second. Use the highest frame rate available if you want to potentially use slow-mo footage or you want your shots to look as realistic as possible. However, if you want more cinematic shots, you may want to use 30 frames per second. This is quite standard across a lot of YouTube videos, so it really is user preference of what kind of shot you want to get. Now, if you're in the PAL region, the highest frame rate is 50 frames per second, 50p. This is just a regional difference and can be changed in the settings. So if you're in movie mode and you've set these other settings, there are a few other options that you can change. If you're in Program Auto mode, you can press right on the function wheel to change your ISO. This is basically the amount of artificial extra light the camera adds to your shot. This can be really handy if you're in low light situations, but it will also add a bit of grain to your footage. I recommend setting this to auto as it will adjust for the light situation that you have got. But if you know you're going to be recording in a really well lit situation, you can set this as low as possible, even as low as 100, and this just means there will be as little noise as possible on your footage. You can also press down on the function wheel to change your exposure settings. I usually use -0.3. This softens the footage slightly and gives it a smoother kind of look, but this really is user preference, so mess around with these and see what you prefer. For this video I'm using the 16 to 50mm kit lens, so this is a good example of the quality that you can achieve with this lens. Of course there are many better and more expensive lenses out there, but if you're going to be doing a video like this, just make sure that you're buying a lens that is wide enough to fit most of the room in your shot while the camera is quite close to you. So around 16mm should do the trick. As soon as you start getting up to around 28, 35mm, you'll have to set your camera a lot further back to fit all of your face and your surroundings in your shot. So the second part of this video is about how changing the light and audio can make a massive difference to the quality of your videos. Improving these two key areas will make your videos look a lot more professional. Starting with the sound, so if you're just using the camera's onboard audio, it will sound a bit like this. Now this is fine when you're first setting out, but it isn't as high quality as audio can be. You will find a lot of limitations with the inbuilt microphones. You'll get a lot of room ambience and you'll also pick up a lot of background noise if using this camera outside. And unfortunately, with a lot of cameras like the Sony a5100 or the Sony a6000, there is no mic input, which means you're restricted to using an external audio device. The first type which you could use is something like the Sony ICD-PX470, which is this device here, which has inbuilt microphones on the top or has a jack input for an external microphone, which you could use for a lapel mic. A device like this costs around £60 or around $80, so not the cheapest, but if you want to improve your audio, this is one way of doing it. The second option is a microphone that you connect to your computer. The obvious downside of this is that it isn't portable, but if you're not going to be recording out and about, you're probably going to get better audio quality than a portable device. For my current audio setup, I'm using a microphone connected to my desktop computer. I'm currently using a Shure SM58 microphone, which is connected via an XLR cable to an external sound card. Now, of course, this way of doing things isn't that cheap. Using this method, the microphone itself costs around £80, around $80, and an external sound card will cost around £100, maybe $120 for the cheapest type. This type of setup is great if you're going to be recording your own music, so you can plug in guitars and stuff like it, but if you're just going to be using a microphone, there are plenty of USB options which plug directly into your computer available. There are options such as a Blue Yeti microphone, which is pretty high quality and costs around £100, around $100. So improving your audio quality isn't the cheapest, but these are, say, second steps that you can take when you're trying to establish your YouTube channel and improve the quality of your videos. So the next thing we're going to talk about is light. For quite a long time, I was just using the camera and natural light. This can be pretty good if you get good bright light during the daytime. Unfortunately, I live in a part of the world where days are often gloomy, and it just means that the light isn't consistent, so the sun goes behind a cloud and all of a sudden your shot looks completely different. It also restricts being able to record at night because it means that you'll have to turn the ISO right up or use indoor light, which can often look quite yellow and not very natural. But luckily, improving your light is a somewhat low-cost way of improving the quality of your YouTube videos. Without using any additional lights, this is what my YouTube videos would look like. So as you can see, with these lights off and just using natural light, the room looks a lot darker and the light is a lot less consistent across the shot. So I'm using a couple of additional lights here to improve the quality of the light for my YouTube videos. The first and main one which I'm using is a Softbox Light. I'm using a Softbox Light by a brand called Rallino. Now this only costs around £30 on Amazon, I think it's around $35, $40, so really quite affordable, and it adds a lot of extra light to the room. Now the downside of this type of Softbox Light is that it's very large. You need to have the space available to store it and also to be able to set it up every time you want to record a video. But it does add tons of light, and it comes with a diffuser which softens the light, which means that you get that really natural looking light across the whole room. The second light that I'm using is an LED panel light, which is much smaller and you can mount on a tripod. Now, because it is so much smaller, it means it takes a lot less to set up and you can store it away really easily in a drawer or in your bag. But because of its size, the light covers a much smaller area when trying to brighten up your shot. So I mainly use this now just as a secondary light to add even more light from further away. So these few settings and room setup tips I think will drastically improve the quality of your YouTube videos. Are there any different camera settings or accessories that you use? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you want to check out any of the products mentioned in this video, you can check them out in the description below. But as always, if you've enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to the channel and dropping a like on the video. And you can also check out my photography on Instagram at aaron.prescott. But that's it from me for now. Until next time, see ya.